All right. So today we're talking about professional emails. I hope you find this useful. I think this is something that if it's a skill that you work on, you'll find in the long run you'll get better responses from people, and it'll take you less time. And I also think you can do a lot of good for other people in terms of kind of putting their needs first and thinking about how to structure emails so that they're as useful as possible to the people that get them. Okay. So some general guidelines. We want to be respectful. So informal's fine, but if you're addressing someone that you need to show respect to, you want to make sure that comes across in the email. Concise is helpful, but I would say even clarity is even better than being concise. If I have to go back and forth with someone because some essential details were missing from the early email, that's not saving me any time or getting no points there just for being concise. Efficient is a clear thing we want to think about. There's a lot of emails going on these days, and so you don't want to have a rambling preamble. You want to get to the point pretty quickly. You want to come across as helpful, not just demanding of the other person. And if you can convey some warmth, that goes a long way towards making the interaction just a little more pleasant. Okay, so I have an example here for you. I want you to pause it and read through it. And I'm kind of giving you this as a model, and think about what pieces work well. So this up here is the subject line, and then here's the email. So go ahead and pause it for a second and try to identify at least 3 things you think it does well. All right. So one thing, you want to have an informative subject line. So if you just said, hey, this is an informational interview that I'm writing about, that's not bad. But if you make clear it's a request, that person knows, hey, I need to do something with this. The action that you want should be foregrounded. In other words, it should come pretty early. You might want to fill in some details later, but the person should be able to right off the bat know why you're writing and what you want them to do. So in this case, I say in just one sentence, I'm writing to inquire about the possibility of a 20-minute informational interview with you sometime in the next 2 weeks. That shows that you are somebody that they can deal with effectively because it's a very clear, specific response. You know what you want. Or, sorry, not response, but request. You know what you want. And it's respecting their time because you're getting to the point right away. Now, once they read that, they're going to want some more details, but it helps them process it if they have that request first, and then they can think about the details in that context. Note that there's some common standard spacing that goes on. You might think this is superfluous or not essential. With texting, we're a lot less formal, but I guarantee you, if you adhere to these spacing kind of standards, emails are just easier to process because stuff is where you expect it to be, and you don't have to exert any mental energy kind of inferring things. So each of these spaces I have is very standard and comes from the formal business letter, and I encourage you to use it. You want to convey that you're appreciative. You also want to say that you're helpful. So I'd be more than happy to work around your schedule. You want to offer up yourself as somebody that's going to be easy and pleasant to deal with. You're not just demanding certain things from them. And then you always have your contact information at the bottom. Have a nice professional little signature down there that makes it easy for people to get a hold of you. Okay, so some key takeaways. It's well organized. It's direct, but it's not pushy. And it's complete. You've got all the essential information there in one email. Okay, so when you want to start thinking about this process, how do you begin? I suggest the first thing you want to do is really get clear on what your goal is. What's your ask or what's your call to action? Until you can really pin down what it is you want this person to do, you're not going to be helpful to them or you. Second, you want to understand your audience. Email writing is writing. Every good writing begins with a clear sense of what do I want to say and how am I going to engage this audience? What are their needs? What's their perspective? And as much as you can get inside their head and what their constraints and opportunities and all that are, the much better off you're going to be. So that's where we want to start. Okay, and then when we get to what components do we want to have, so I'm going to cover up the call to action here because I don't have enough space. Okay, so what components? You want to have an informative subject line, something that conveys and makes them want to open your email. You want to have some kind of respectful, friendly salutation. So dear is a very common traditional way of starting that, dear so-and-so. You want to have an early ask. That's where you foreground what it is exactly you want to say. And I should point out here, I have the little letter here from the unicorns because I think it's funny. They're not doing some of the things I'm telling you to do. So there's an early ask. Make it ideally in the first or second sentence. That's that call to action. Call to action. And then you want to have efficiently organized paragraphs. So some people will tell you if it's more than 3 paragraphs, it should probably be a phone call. I would disagree with that. It depends on what you're trying to do and what the purpose of the interaction is. There's some times where it's helpful to lay out extra details. Now, if in doubt, go back and read and double check and see if you need them. But sometimes it's helpful, but definitely being concise is really appreciated. Okay, so you're fleshing out, you're trying to anticipate questions. You don't want to email somebody and then have them have to immediately ask you multiple questions. You want to try to anticipate some of those. Cut extraneous stuff where you can. And then you want to have some kind of appropriate closing. So sincerely or thank you, you're almost never going to go wrong with those. You can be fancier, but those are good standbys. Okay, so what's wrong here? This is similar to an email I got recently. It says, good afternoon. My advisor told me I have to contact you directly to see if there's a wait list I can get on for Psych 301 during the fall semester. I was trying to sign up, but it was already filled. Is there a way I can still take the class fall semester or get on a wait list for it? Okay, I'm noting that I received this in the summer in June. No signature. This is it. Okay, so first off, people like to hear their name. So I will tell you, if impossible, don't start with a generic good afternoon. Jump right into with the person's name. Secondly, think about this. If you're sending an email on the weekend or in the evening, that's okay, but you shouldn't give any indication that you think in a professional context somebody should respond on the evening or the weekend. So if you email somebody and say good evening, that's saying I'm interrupting your off hours, your off duty time. And you're suggesting that you want them to respond on their off duty time. Same thing like, I hope you're having a good weekend. If you're going to send something on the evening or the weekend, make it very clear that you don't expect any kind of response until working hours. So you can get in trouble with trying to address somebody by the time of day it is. Okay. So second thing, my advisor told me I have to contact you. So that puts the person in a very passive, they're doing this because somebody else told them to do it. Immediately, I'm less inclined to want to engage this person because it seems like they're not on the ball. They're just a billiard ball it's being bounced around from somebody else. They're not taking initiative. I want to contact you. Okay, and then this next part of the sentence has some problems. My advisor told me to contact you directly to see if there's a wait list I can get on for Psychology 301 during the fall semester. So that slows the person's processing down a little bit because the wait listing isn't for during the fall semester. You want to get on a wait list now to get into the class for the fall semester. So if I were reading this over, I would rewrite it directly to see if there's a fall wait list I can get on for Psychology 301. And then it goes on to say, I was trying to sign up, but it was already filled. Is there a way I can still take the class fall semester or get on the wait list for it? So it's kind of meandering because it's not clear whether you want to be on the wait list or if what you're really asking for is you want an override. And if you want an override, you should be asking for why, or clarifying why you want the override. What's your justification for asking for it? Okay, the other issue here, I'll show you a better response, but you need to know your audience. So professors don't work in the summer, at least, well, we work in the summer, but we're not expected to respond to students because we're not on contract. We're not getting paid. And advising occurs at a specific time when we are getting paid, and that's when people are expected to come in for advising. Now, life happens, and there's, things come up where people don't get advised when they're supposed to be, but you want to at least acknowledge that you're kind of asking for something at a time where it's not ideal, and it's because you missed the time that was set aside for it. Okay, so what would the alternative look like? So start with the person's name. If somebody has a doctorate, say, "Dear Doctor," that's really helpful. And then clarify up front what you want. You're asking about an override, right? Like a wait list is fine, but that's not really what you want as an override. Okay, and then some acknowledgement that this person you're asking something from is not supposed to be responding to your emails. In other words, you're kind of asking them to go above and beyond. Okay, but then, and just explain what happened, right? Like, I had the eyes getting covered up there. I had a rough spring semester and missed advising. These things happen. It's no problem. I'm trying to get back on track and realized I need to take Psych 301 this fall to graduate on time. No, they don't need to talk about their advisor. Their advisor is irrelevant. They just talk about that they realized that they need to do this. Okay, I realize this is my fault, but I would be very grateful. So here's what they're offering something. They're saying, you would have my gratitude if you could make space for me this fall. And then they're offering something else. Please let me know if there's additional information that might be useful. How can I help you? And then thanks again for your time, Betsy Bonesmacker. And then you'll notice some other details here. Oh, I skipped over a few big thing here. Before up here, they mentioned that the reason they need to take it is so they're going to graduate on time. That's the most powerful case you can make for an override, is you don't want to have to stay an extra semester to take a course. So make your case, right? So making the case is not just, hey, could I get into this class? It's, if I don't get in, I'm going to have to stay an extra semester. That's giving me more information to work with. Okay, acknowledge if you have any blame or any limitations, acknowledge those. And then you'll note down here too, ideally, if I'm going to give an override, I need to know the person's Winthrop ID number. Now, most people don't know that. But if you're thinking ahead and kind of thinking through the full situation, that would be something good to include. But at least give your phone number. So if there's something's unclear or I need to just expedite it and pick up the phone, don't make me track you down. Okay, so I'm not trying to, by all means, if something happens and you need to contact somebody and ask for something that's kind of asking them to go above the normal course of business, by all means do that. Be an advocate for yourself. But you want to at least acknowledge that you're making an ask of them and either say you're sorry or be extra appreciative, but kind of think about it from their perspective. Okay. So what's the problem here? Zoom kicked me off class today, so I was unable to participate. I'm hoping this won't be counted as an absence. Please let me know what I should do. Thanks, Danny Dusseldorferstan. So what's the problem here? Well, what I would say is, if you want to look this up, if you have some extra time, there's an old movie called The Blues Brothers, and there's a great scene where this guy, Jake, is making excuses to his girlfriend, who is so mad she's now trying to kill him. But he's saying it wasn't his fault. So the issue here is Zoom doesn't kick you off. something on your end is not working right. Like you don't have enough bandwidth, and that's why you're getting kicked off. So you want to make sure that you're not coming across as a slug, right? As somebody that isn't taking ownership of what's going on. So what would a better approach be? So the real issue here is they want the attendance credit, right? This is placing the burden on the instructor as opposed to them taking ownership for the problem. Okay, so what would a better approach be? Okay, so first off, I apologize for missing class today. I logged in on Zoom, but the connection was spotty, and I was soon disconnected and unable to rejoin. I've since realized that my home Wi-Fi isn't reliable. From now on, I will log on from my friends, so I shouldn't have any more problems. Now, I'm just jumping in and assuming that that's what the case was. But if that's not the case, just start off and say, I apologize for missing class. For some reason, my Zoom stopped working during class. But then go on to say what you have done to try to diagnose the problem. Don't just say, hey, there was a problem. Can you give me credit? Okay. And then make the ask, right? I am trying very hard to earn all the possible attendance points. If there is something I can do to earn back these missed points, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. And then down below, you have Danny and his phone number. Now notice I'm violating a rule here. I'm not getting to the ask right away. And that's because it's you first kind of want to soften up or make your case before you make the ask, right? Because this is a situation where you're kind of having to finesse this. So there's some times where you leave that ask for a little bit later. Okay, but you do notice some of the things you're doing. You're trying to get some empathy. I'm trying very hard to earn all the possible attendance points. And then you're offering something. If there's something I can do to earn back these missed points, I would greatly appreciate it. So notice I'm not putting the burden on the person I'm writing. I'm taking ownership of it. Now, just FYI, even if you're cynical about this, if you're writing and offering to do something, that puts you in a better light. So even if you don't want to do anything extra, it's still good to make that offer. Now, I encourage you to just take ownership and take initiative and sincerely make the offer, but it's in your interest to do so. Okay, so some takeaways here. You certainly want to take ownership. You want to show that you're problem solving, offer to do some extra work. You're giving a better opening. I'm saying, Dear Dr. Sin, and there's a better closing, sincerely. And you're stepping up. You're taking, I got a superhero here. You're taking some initiative. Okay, so here is an actual email I got. You might say it's a little long. I think it's fine. But some other people might say that. But I'm just going to stop for a second, ask you to read it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, now this doesn't perfectly follow the format that I'm kind of suggesting, but it's very clear. It starts off and says, this is who I am. I'm an incoming transfer student, hoping to get into one of statistics classes for the fall. So there's an implicit ask there. I know why they're contacting me. They're also making their case because there are transfer students. Transfer students can't register early, so they have to come in late and kind of say, hey, can I get this override? Okay. So they're showing the initiative. They've looked this up. They got the CRNs. They say, I see both these such and such and such and such are full. And this is where they're showing some empathy. They're taking the perspective. I understand that it would be more work on your plate to add another student to your course. And I understand if you're unable to let me join in. However, if there's any chance to get on a wait list, I would love to hear that. I'm a hard worker. I'm passionate about it. And then they kind of go on and they're making the case that, hey, I would be a good student in your class. I would not cause you problems. More often than not, people that are coming asking for overrides have missed things that make it likely they're going to miss things in your class, and they're not going to be a great asset. So again, like, you may think, hey, I'm entitled to this spot in this class. Well, maybe, but if you're thinking about strategically, like, why would somebody let me into this? You want to make the case logically that, hey, you're a transfer student, but also you want to say, toot your own horn a little bit, like, look, I would appreciate this. I would be one of your more on the ball students. Okay. If there's any way for you to add me to the wait list in the case someone drops, that would be awesome. Fingers crossed. So there's some warmth there. Maybe some people might say it's a little chatty. I think it's good. The student's trying to make a good impression. Thank you in advance. I look forward to hearing from you soon. And then they gave some information. I've changed some details here in terms of who the student is, but it's pretty close to what they wrote. Okay. So, but that's just, I'm trying to show you there's students that take initiative and students that don't. And throughout life, one of those strategies is going to get you better options and outcomes. Okay, so professional email, some more pointers. I just want to emphasize again that perspective taking is really vital. One thing you're doing is you're showing respect or deference. If there's any points of similarity that you can kind of point to, if there's some past interactions with this person, if you're contacting somebody that's a Winthrop alumni, you want to certainly play that up. You want to order the components, the way you tell the story, around the reader's perspective, not your perspective. Not my advisor told me to do such and such. You want to start with what you're asking the person and then explain the logic to them. Supporting details can come after. You're not dating. You don't need to warm up for that. You should have some graciousness in there, some appreciation, any caveats. So again, you're trying to unspool it from the person's perspective. Okay, so another thing is here, consider tone. Convey warmth where possible and adjust the formality to show deference and respect. When in doubt, be a little more formal. It doesn't hurt. And then this is just my opinion, but oftentimes now it's kind of become cliche to say something like, I hope this email finds you well. Usually that's not needed. The problem with the cliche is it's used so much it kind of loses its meaning. So there's other ways to convey warmth and concern, and see if you can do it in a way that takes a little more thought and it might be appreciated a little bit more. Okay, I just want to run through again, hit back on this early example to emphasize a few things. Remember the spacing. This goes without saying, but good grammar. Good grammar makes it easier for me to process stuff. The other thing is, every time you're reaching out to somebody and asking them for something or trying to interact with them, they're doing mental calculations about, am I going to get more from this person or am I going to get less from this person? Is this person going to enrich my life or is this person going to be a hassle? If you're not taking the time to address somebody with good grammar, it's likely the case that you're going to be seen as a burden as opposed to somebody that's it's good to engage with. You want to have the contact details. And again, remember the clear ask. What is it you want the person to do? That should come early and all the details should be spelled out. Okay, so what's good here? So this is a sample email. Somebody's having a project problem with Psych 195. What did they say? Okay, Psych 195 email project. I know what they're writing about. I know what class they're in, etc. So, good morning, Dr. Sin. Okay, using my name, addressing me in a positive way. My name is so-and-so. I'm currently taking your na-na-na. I've been confused about the email project. Okay. A lot of times you'll get then the next thing the person will say, could I get some extra assistance or could you help me? Most professors are more than happy to help, but take a little more initiative. Show me where you are and what problems you've been having, right? So I've tried editing the document, but the link isn't working, and I was hoping you could help me troubleshoot. I've tried clicking on the link and I have asked in the class discussion board, but nobody's been able to help me. I appreciate your time and thank you in advance. So they show some things that they have done. So that's not only helpful, it's helpful in two ways. One, it's showing that you're taking initiative, that you're not just coming in and saying, fix this for me. But two, it's giving that person some information to work with so they kind of know what you've already tried. Okay, so what's wrong here? This is an email. I've edited a little bit, but somebody CC'd this on me. They were writing to somebody else. So this is from a student who's got a final grade they weren't happy with, and they have contacted the professor. Hi there. Can I ask why I still didn't receive good grades on the projects? I've showed you that I made the corrections, but you still didn't give me credit. I got a good grade on the quizzes, and so I know how to do it. Please advise. Riley Rudymost, and then they had this tag from their software that they're using. Okay, so lots of problems here, right? So it's the impersonal opening, the hi there. That's hi there in general. It can sound snide or kind of terse, so it's to be used with caution. At least if you're contacting someone that has power over you, like a professor, it's pretty dangerous to be this informal. There's kind of an underlying accusatory term. Even if you think somebody has really done you wrong, it's generally not in your interest to start with that kind of accusation. See if you can. You might need to turn some heat on later, but see if you can first of all approach in a less aggressive way. So there's no real goodwill gesture. There's no I appreciate your help on giving me the extra feedback, or find something that you can say thank you for. The ask is really bad, right? It's not clear what you want. Please advise. What you're asking really is something like, is there a chance I could get a better understanding of why those grades are still what they originally were? Or is there something else I need to do? Please let me know if there's something I can do to address this situation. So be a little more specific. The closing, there was no closing. There was no sincerely. There was no thank you. And this is smaller stuff. This doesn't go to the annoying stuff. But you're not giving any contact information. So always, it's good to give a phone number if you're asking for somebody to do something, because they may need to talk to you. And this is not something I would just give you something to think about. Lots of times you get these taglines that are like inserted in by the software where they're basically advertising. You can very easily take that out, and it just makes your letter look a little more professional, a little more like you've kind of crafted it. So most folks want to have some kind of standard signature they put at the end of their email. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be your name and your phone number, but it looks better than the corporate advertising. Okay, so this is some more advanced stuff, but I just want you to think about these kinds of things when you're interacting via email. So you can say, if you're behind on something, you can say sorry for the delay, or you can say thanks for your patience. So sorry for the delay kind of puts you in a lower position. Thanks for your patience. You're giving something to the person. You're acknowledging that you've been slow, and you're thanking them for being patient. Now notice, they may not be patient, but they've had to wait, so you might as well as give them credit for being patient, right? So some of this is stuff a little spinning to make it so that you kind of look better and you kind of protect your image a bit. Okay, so I would say here the thanks for your patience is the better response. Okay, what about I could do 2 on Tuesday or 10 on Wednesday? Versus what works best for you. So if you can do it without being presumptuous, offering some specific times is often better, because it cuts down on the back and forth. Okay, if you fix something that somebody else messed up, you can either say, no problems, no worries, or always happy to help. The second one is you still taking credit for fixing somebody else's problem. right? I'm happy to help, happy to go the extra mile, right? The no problems, no worries, just kind of let somebody off the hook. Again, these are small things. You don't have to agree with me, but just think about how it's framing what happened slightly differently. Okay, then often also, please let me know if you have any questions versus hopefully that makes sense. I think this first one is a little more assertive, a little more taking control. The hopefully that makes sense question mark is kind of a little mealy mouth. Hopefully you've constructed your email well enough that you have some confidence that it makes sense, but asking if they have any questions, that also makes sense. Okay, a few more here. Okay, somebody's late on something. Do you say, just wanted to check in, or when might I be able to get an update? The second one is kind of putting the ball in their court. It's you're making an ask, right? You're saying, when are you going to be able to let me know? Now you got to think about how you word that. You might say something, you could be really soft, like, is there a chance I could get some kind of update by maybe Friday? You can word things in a way that softens it, but oftentimes it's good to give people a specific, try to ask for a specific commitment. Okay, let's say somebody fixes something that you had messed up, right? You can do one of two things. You can either just go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot, totally messed that up. Or you could come in, what I would recommend is say, nice catch. I've updated the file. Thanks for letting me know. So in other words, you're complimenting them for catching something. You're showing appreciation, but you're not belittling yourself and drawing attention to your error. You're drawing attention to their helpfulness. Okay. And then if you do have to leave early, if something has, you have a situation to work with, don't just say, can I maybe leave early? You want to say something like, if possible, I need to leave by such and such for the dentist by 2, right? So just give the specific, right? Set the time you need to leave by, but don't make it look like you're just weaseling. And okay, so I've edited these somewhat, but these were something that I found online that I thought were interesting. So I'm giving credit to this person. Okay, a few more tips. Things that make it work better. Threading. So if you're emailing somebody, or if they've emailed you, keep that chain going so that if you need to go back and refer to things, you can. If you've emailed somebody with a specific request and they reply, don't start a new email, because then that person can't go back and look and see what's already happened in that chain. Some polishing. You can send emails where the link says click here. In a lot of programs, all you have to do is highlight the here, hit Control K, paste in the link, but it looks better than having to have the whole ugly link there in your email, the whole URL. So there's some little tricks like that you can learn to make your emails look a little more professional. One thing, if you're writing a long email, you might want to write it in Word or write it somewhere else first before you paste it in. If you want to protect yourself against sending something by accident, you can wait before you put that person's name in the subject line. I think it makes more sense to write it somewhere else and pull it in, but that's another strategy. Double check the spelling of names. Nothing is more off-putting than when people misspell your name, right? Everybody's name is really sacred to them, so double check that you're spelling it correctly. Make sure you read the email out loud. If you read stuff out loud, you can hear grammar and punctuation errors. Bullet points are your friend if it has any level of complexity. If you need people to do several things, say, could you get these 3 things done by Wednesday? Boom, boom, boom. Font consistency. If you're pulling in something from another program, make sure that you adjust the font so that everything's consistent. It's one of those things that it takes mental energy if the font is messed up or is not consistent. That comes from that copy and paste stuff. One other thing to think about is the timing. So it's not hard to schedule emails. There's some different ways to do that. But oftentimes people will try to, if they're really concerned about you paying attention to something, they'll kind of shoot for a sweet spot. Like maybe they'll send it to you like at 9 a.m. in the morning. So you've kind of made sure people have come in, they've kind of put out the major fires, and then they can look at that email and send it. Or you might know somebody works better in the afternoon. I personally think it's okay to send emails at any time of the day, but you can get better action lots of times if you think about when to send it. But again, I mentioned this earlier, don't send something to somebody on the weekend if it's business related and say something like, I hope you're having a great weekend. I'm sorry I'm interrupting it. Word it in a way where it's clear that you don't need to get to it until it's Monday. Okay, and then just some more resources here for you. Some subject lines. Subject lines are kind of like the billboards. They're trying to get you to buy in enough that you open the email, right? So if you say, put in parentheses, action required, that can be helpful. If it is something that's just informational, you can say FYI. That makes them know, oh, I don't need to do anything with this. This is just for reference. Maybe request for a brief chat if you're looking for an informational interview. If you're trying to get somebody to fill out a survey, you put in reminder, survey to complete. Will take 2 minutes. You're saying, here's my specific ask. It's not going to take you that long. It makes you more likely to start it. If you're trying to reach out to somebody and you have a common connection and they don't know the person, but you're trying to contact doesn't know you, but they know this other person, drop that person's name in the subject line. So-and-so suggested I reach out to you. If they don't know you, but they know that person, they're more likely to open that email. Or you can almost transact some business in a subject line so the person doesn't have to dig into the weeds. So I'm going to be in town next Tuesday. Are you available? Right? But think about what you can do with the subject line. So again, these are some resources I found online. So there's the link to that. Some good closings to keep in mind. Sincerely, best regards, best, warm regards, warm wishes, kind regards, kind wishes. So managing emotional interactions on email is kind of difficult sometimes. So one of the ways you can inflect that is the kind of closings that you choose. So there's certain cases where if you want to kind of soften something, if you have power more so than somebody else, if you say warm regards, that's a little softer, a little gentler than just sincerely. But again, if you say sincerely, it's one of those, it's rarely going to get you in trouble. Maybe if you're writing to your girlfriend or boyfriend, but otherwise, not bad. Okay, and then, so just to summarize some key points we've gone over here, choose the subject carefully. Make sure it's informative. You want somebody to open that email. Make clear, specific asks. Make it a very clear call to action. Perspective taking. What does that reader value, need, or want? And one of the most basic things is if you're not taking the time to structure the email in a way that makes it clear that you're trying to be efficient and value that person's time, if you're not checking grammar and spelling of their name and that kind of stuff, that's really indicating that you're not taking that person's perspective. Should be comprehensive, should have all the necessary information, but also concise, as efficient as possible. Oftentimes I'll read stuff again and see if there's something I can cut out. You want to have a respectful, helpful tone. Always, if you can, you be persistent and be an advocate for yourself, but doesn't hurt to come across as somebody that's willing to help someone else. Okay, and then when you read it out loud, I want you to do it as you imagine it from their perspective. Stop and think about it as they're perceiving it, not as what your needs are. All right, that is it. Thank you for listening, and happy emailing.